Elias Turner had lived most of his life on the quiet edges of Willow Creek, a small western town where everyone knew everyone, and news traveled faster than the wind. He had grown up on his father's ranch, surrounded by wide fields, long fences, and the steady rhythm of caring for animals. After his father passed away, the ranch became both his duty and his comfort. The land gave him purpose, and the quiet gave him the peace he often needed. Elias was not the kind of man who liked to talk much. He was gentle, soft-spoken, and careful with every word he said. Many people teased him for being shy, but they also respected him. If a neighbor's horse got loose, or a fence broke during the night, Elias was the first to offer help. When people thanked him, his cheeks would turn pink, and he would mumble something like, "It's nothing," before walking away quickly. He never believed he was special. But others often said he had the kindest heart in town. Though he lived simply, there was one thing missing from his life: someone to share it with. Most men his age were married already, raising families, or planning to. Elias wanted that too, but he never knew how to speak to women without stumbling over his words. The idea of courtship made him nervous. He worried he would say the wrong thing, make someone uncomfortable, or embarrass himself in front of the entire town. He had once tried to ask a school teacher to join him for a walk, but his voice cracked, and the whole moment fell apart before it even began. After that, he quietly accepted that maybe marriage was not meant for him, but the townsfolk did not give up on him. One afternoon, while Elias was buying supplies, old Mrs. Grady behind the counter leaned forward and said, "There's a mail-order bride agency, you know. Helps shy men, helps lonely women. You should at least look at it." Elias turned red instantly. "Me? I don't think. You're a good man," she said firmly. "You deserve someone good too." Her words settled in his mind like seeds. And over the next few weeks, those seeds began to grow. Eventually, after many evenings of thinking alone by lamplight, Elias sent a letter to the agency. It felt strange to write about himself, but he was honest. He wrote that he was a rancher, that he was gentle, that he wished for someone who would not mind his quiet nature. A few weeks later, a reply came. The letter inside was written in strong but careful handwriting. The woman's name was Anya Kovac, and she lived in a small European village far across the ocean. She wrote about her life, about the simple joys of her childhood, and about her work helping her family with farm tasks. She wrote about wanting a partner who would respect her, someone who valued kindness more than fancy words or polished manners. At first, Elias read the letter 3 times, afraid he had misunderstood something. A woman like her writing to a man like him felt almost unbelievable. Yet the letter was real, and at the bottom, her signature stretched neatly across the page. When he wrote back, he worried about every sentence. Was he too plain? Too dull? Too unsure? But he wrote the truth. He told her about the ranch, about the quiet mornings when the sun rose over the fields, about his awkwardness in social gatherings, and about how he hoped she would not mind how nervous he often felt. Weeks passed, and more letters came. Each one brought a small bit of warmth to Elias's days. He began to smile more often, even if only to himself, while fixing fences or feeding the horses. Reading her words made him feel as though someone understood him from far away, someone patient and open-hearted. Through the letters, he learned Anya's story. She was taller and stronger than most women in her village, and sometimes even stronger than many of the men. She had grown up doing hard labor because she needed to, not because she liked it. She described lifting heavy sacks of grain, chopping wood, and helping carry supplies across fields. While her family appreciated her strength, many men in her village did not. They wanted a delicate, soft-spoken wife who needed protecting, not a woman who could outwork them. Anya's size and strength made many suitors turn away. She was often judged before she even spoke a word. Some men felt intimidated by her presence, and others simply laughed, assuming she would never find a husband. It hurt her deeply, though she rarely showed it. She wrote to Elias about her fears that she would be alone forever, fears that no one would see her heart behind her strong appearance. Elias felt his chest tighten whenever he read those lines. He knew what it felt like to be misunderstood, He knew what it felt like to think no one would ever choose him, simply because he didn't fit the mold other people wanted. Gradually, their letters became more personal. Elias told her about his father's passing and how he felt unprepared to run the ranch alone. Anya told him about her brothers and how she had often been the protector in her family, despite being younger than some of them. They began to ask questions about each other's dreams. What do you hope for in a partner? What is the life you imagine for yourself? What would make you feel safe? What would make you feel valued? Elias admitted he wanted someone who could understand his quiet nature, who would not push him to speak loudly or act differently than who he was. Anya admitted she wanted someone who would not be afraid of her, someone who would see her as a woman with hopes and feelings, not just someone with an unusual size. With every letter exchanged, the distance between them seemed smaller. Then one letter arrived from the agency itself. It explained that several men in Willow Creek had once inquired about Anya, but had backed out after hearing descriptions of her strength and height. It warned that Anya had faced rejection before, often unfairly. Elias felt a small ache in his heart when he read that. He imagined her arriving in a strange country only to face more disappointment. He wanted to tell her that he would not do that to her, but he also feared making promises he wasn't brave enough to keep. Still, he wrote her a long, thoughtful letter, one of the longest he had ever written. He told her that he did not care what others thought, that he respected her for her honesty, and that if she chose to come to Willow Creek, he would do his best to welcome her with kindness. Weeks later, a new letter arrived. Inside, Anya wrote that she had made her decision. She would travel to America. She had gathered her savings, packed her belongings, and arranged her passage on a ship. She wrote that she did not expect luxury, only sincerity. And she trusted Elias's sincerity more than anything else. Elias read the letter by the low glow of his lamp. His hands shook slightly, not with fear, but with the heavy, overwhelming feeling that his life was about to change. He stood up from his chair and walked outside, staring at the sky full of stars. The night was quiet except for the soft sound of the wind moving through the fields. The idea that someone had chosen to travel across the ocean, someone who had faced so much misunderstanding, someone strong in body but gentle in spirit, made Elias feel both excited and nervous. What if she didn't like the ranch? What if she found him too quiet? What if he disappointed her? But the thought that kept returning to him was simple. He wanted her to feel welcome. He wanted her to feel safe. He wanted to be someone she could trust. The news spread quickly through town. As soon as people heard that a mail-order bride was coming for Elias, the whispering began. Some were curious, some were doubtful, and some simply amused. Many remembered the stories about the men who had written to Anya only to disappear when they learned she was taller and stronger than they imagined. Elias ignored the whispers as much as he could. He cleaned the ranch house, bought fresh linens, and prepared the guest room so she would have a comfortable place to stay. He even practiced what he might say when he first saw her. When the day finally came, Elias found himself standing at the small station platform, his hands shaking lightly as he waited for the stagecoach. Dust drifted around the wheels as the coach approached, and his heart pounded so loudly he wondered if others could hear it. He didn't know exactly what Anya would look like. He only knew her through her handwriting, her honesty, and her gentle but strong spirit. And that was enough for him to hope, really hope, that this meeting would be the beginning of something good. And when the door of the coach opened and she stepped down, tall and steady, carrying her heavy trunk with ease, Elias felt his breath catch, not in fear, but in awe, because in that moment, he understood something he had not realized before. She had crossed an ocean to meet him, she had chosen him, and he truly wanted to be worthy of that choice. When Anya stepped down from the stagecoach, the entire platform seemed to fall into a quiet pause. People who had been chatting only seconds earlier suddenly stopped mid-sentence. The driver himself blinked twice as if he had never seen anything like her before. She was tall, taller than any woman the town had ever seen, but there was nothing harsh or frightening about her. She stood with a calm, steady posture, her hands resting gently on the handle of her heavy trunk, which she lifted as though it weighed very little. Elias felt the air leave his chest. For a moment, he forgot every word he had practiced. All he could do was stare, wide-eyed, trying to remember how to breathe. She looked exactly like the woman he had imagined from her letters, strong, thoughtful, and strangely graceful for someone who carried such physical power. Anya noticed him at once. Her expression softened with relief when their eyes met, as though she had feared he might not be there. She took a few careful steps toward him, her long skirt brushing against the dusty wooden planks of the platform. "Elias Turner?" she asked gently, her accent warm but clear. Elias swallowed and nodded. "Yes, that's me." His voice was barely above a whisper, but she heard it. She gave him a polite smile, not too wide, not too forced. She seemed just as nervous as he was, although she tried to hide it. The trunk in her hand looked heavy enough to need 2 men. Yet she held it like a simple box. "Let me carry that," Elias managed to say, reaching out to take it from her. But when he wrapped his hands around the trunk, the weight nearly pulled him forward. His knees bent slightly, and he struggled to keep his grip. Anya quickly steadied the trunk with one hand before it slipped. "Maybe we carry it together?" she suggested softly, not wanting him to feel embarrassed. Elias nodded quickly, thankful for her kindness. They both held the trunk and carried it toward the wagon he had brought. The townspeople watched with open curiosity. Some whispered about her size, others stared at her strength. A few simply looked surprised that Elias Turner, the shyest man in Willow Creek, was the one welcoming her. Elias kept his eyes forward, trying not to let the murmurs distract him. When they finally placed the trunk in the wagon, he wiped his hands on his trousers and took a steady breath. He wanted to say something kind, something that would make her feel welcome, but his nerves tangled every word he tried to form. It's good to meet you," he finally said. Anya's eyes softened, and she nodded. "It is good to meet you too." They climbed into the wagon, and Elias guided the horses down the dusty road toward the ranch. The breeze was gentle, carrying the smell of dry grass and warm earth. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence was not uncomfortable, just cautious, like 2 people trying to learn the right rhythm together. Anya was the first to break it. "Your letters were very kind," she said quietly. "I was worried you would be different in person." Elias kept his eyes on the road. "I worried the same, about myself," he admitted. "I thought maybe I wouldn't say things the right way." "You speak fine," she said. "I understand you." Her simple words made his shoulders relax a little. He glanced at her quickly before looking back at the road. She wasn't looking around nervously or judging anything. She sat straight but calm, her hands folded in her lap, her expression thoughtful. As they rode, she gazed out at the wide land, taking it all in: the rolling fields, the scattered fences, the ranch houses in the distance. "It is very open here," she said. "Different from home. My village has hills and narrow paths. Here, everything feels like it can breathe." "That's why I like it," Elias said. "It's quiet. Some people think it's too empty." "Not me," she replied. "Quiet is good." When they reached the ranch, Anya's eyes widened slightly. The house was small but tidy, with a porch and a few rocking chairs Elias had made himself. The fields behind it stretched long and golden under the sun. She smiled softly, as if she could already imagine herself there. Elias helped her down from the wagon, this time more confident. He motioned toward the house. "I fixed a room for you," he said. "You can rest after your long trip." "That is very thoughtful," she said sincerely. He picked up one of her smaller bags, and she carried the other, careful not to make him feel unnecessary. Inside the house, she noticed the clean floors, the fresh linens, and the small vase of wildflowers he had placed on the table earlier that morning. She ran her fingers gently over the petals. "You prepared well," she said. "I wanted you to feel comfortable," Elias replied, his cheeks warming a little. As she set her belongings in the guest room, Elias stepped into the kitchen to heat the soup he had made. When she joined him, he offered her a bowl. She sat at the table, and for a moment they simply ate quietly. The silence between them was not empty. It was shy. Yes, but also full of new possibilities. After dinner, they moved to the small living area. The soft glow of the oil lamp filled the room with a warm light. Anya sat on one end of the sofa, while Elias sat on the other. He wanted to ask her many questions, but he didn't want to overwhelm her. "It must have been a long journey," he said gently. "It was," she answered. "But I kept thinking about your letters. They made the distance feel smaller." Elias looked down, his heart feeling unexpectedly full. "I thought the same." Anya then looked at him with a worry she had been carrying for years. I hope I am not too much for you," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes showed something deeper: fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of being seen only as unusual. Elias shook his head quickly. "No, you're not too much. I'm just not used to someone being so strong, but not in a bad way." She smiled softly. "Where I come from, strength is simply work. Nothing special." "Still," he said, "it's admirable." Her cheeks warmed at the compliment. "And you," she said, "you are gentler than most men I have known." He blinked in surprise. "Is that good?" "It is very good," she said. As they talked, the room grew warmer, and their words grew easier. They spoke about their families, about simple memories, about small hopes. They avoided heavy topics because they both sensed that trust takes time, even if letters had already begun the path. Outside, the sunset painted the sky in soft gold and pink. Inside, the quiet conversation helped loosen the tension that had followed them since the stagecoach. But the peaceful moment did not last long. A sudden shift of wind outside made the windows rattle lightly. Elias frowned. "Storm's coming sooner than expected," he murmured, standing to check the shutters. Anya followed him to the window, watching the clouds gather in the distance. "Will it be strong?" "Maybe," Elias said. "They can be loud, but the house is safe." She nodded but still looked uneasy. Storms in her homeland were different from those on the open plains of America. The wide sky here made everything feel larger, even the weather. Elias noticed her hesitation and spoke carefully. "If you feel unsettled tonight, you can call for me. I'll be awake for a while." Her expression gentled. "Thank you. But I do not want to trouble you." "It wouldn't be trouble," he said sincerely. As evening deepened, Anya went to her room, and Elias went to his. But neither of them slept quickly. Anya lay awake, listening to the wind rising outside. The unfamiliar sounds made her heart beat faster. She wondered if she had made a mistake coming so far. What if she didn't fit here? What if she ended up alone again? Meanwhile, Elias sat on the edge of his bed, thinking about the townspeople whispering earlier. He knew Anya must have noticed the looks and murmurs, even if she pretended not to. He worried the town's gossip might make her feel unwelcome. He wished he had said more to reassure her. As the wind howled gently and the shutters trembled, both of them realized the same truth in different rooms. This was not just a simple first night. This was the beginning of a new life. And beginnings were always filled with both fear and hope. And though neither of them knew it yet, the coming hours would reveal something important, something that would change the way they saw each other forever. The storm arrived during the deepest part of the night. At first, it was only a distant roll of thunder, soft enough that it sounded like the earth clearing its throat. But soon the wind grew stronger, brushing against the windows in long sweeps that made the shutters tremble. The clouds overhead gathered so tightly that not a single star could be seen. Anya lay awake in her bed, staring at the ceiling. The room was comfortable, the sheets soft and clean, but the unfamiliar sounds outside kept her mind alert. Back home, storms were different, closer, heavier, and often tangled with the sounds of the village nearby. But here the land was open, wide, and the wind seemed to run freely across the plains. Every gust felt like it came from a great distance, rolling over fields and fences before reaching the ranch. She sat up slowly, pulling her blanket around her shoulders. For a long moment, she simply listened. The house creaked gently, but not in a frightening way, more like an old friend adjusting to the cold. She closed her eyes, trying to steady her breathing. Meanwhile, in the next room, Elias was sitting up too. He had not fallen asleep at all, partly because of the storm, partly because he was worried about Anya. He kept thinking about her long journey, the newness of everything around her, and the weight of the expectations she must be carrying. He didn't want her to feel alone, not on her first night in America. When he heard a sudden stronger gust rattle the kitchen window, he stood quickly and walked quietly into the hallway. Just as he reached the door, he saw a soft glow of light under Anya's door. She was awake too. For a moment, Elias hesitated. Should he knock? Should he leave her alone? He didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable or disturb her rest. But then he heard another low rumble of wind, and something in him decided that kindness was better than hesitation. He lifted his hand and tapped gently. "Miss Anya?" he said softly. "Are you all right?" There was a small pause before she replied. "Yes, but I cannot sleep." Elias opened the door only a little, keeping respectful space. "Would you like to come to the kitchen? The lamp is still lit. Sometimes warm tea helps." Anya considered this. She didn't want to seem nervous or afraid, but she appreciated the offer more than she could explain. After a moment, she rose from the bed and stepped into the hallway, the blanket still draped around her shoulders. Together they walked to the kitchen, and Elias lit another small lamp, filling the room with a soft golden glow. The storm continued outside, but inside, everything seemed warmer, quieter, safer. Elias poured hot water into 2 cups and added a small pinch of dried herbs. "I usually drink this when I can't sleep," he said. "It has a calming flavor." Anya wrapped her hands around the cup and took a small sip. The warmth spread through her fingers and down her throat. "This is very nice," she said. They sat there in silence for a moment, listening to the soft patter of rain beginning on the roof. The storm was not violent, it was only restless. The kind that seemed to move around the house, circling it gently like an unsettled visitor. Anya breathed slowly, relaxing little by little. "Thank you for checking on me," she said. "I did not want to disturb you." "You didn't disturb me," Elias replied quickly. "I couldn't sleep either." She looked at him with a gentle curiosity. "Do storms usually keep you awake?" "Sometimes," he admitted. "But tonight I was more worried about you. I know this place is new." Her eyes softened. "I appreciate that, truly." They finished their tea, and for a short while, they simply talked quiet conversation. Simple stories, nothing heavy or troubling. Elias told her about the barn he repaired last spring and how one of the young calves always tried to follow him around like a puppy. Anya told him about her younger brother's silly habit of feeding crumbs to birds even in the rain. The warmth of the tea and the soft glow of the kitchen made the storm outside feel far away. But it didn't stay gentle. A sudden crack of wind pressed hard against the side of the house, and a dull thump echoed across the yard. Elias stood up sharply, his worries rising. He walked to the window and leaned close, trying to see through the rain. "That came from the barn," he said. "I think something fell." Anya stood as well. "Is everything safe?" "It should be," he said slowly. "But the roof was old in one spot. I need to check it." "You shouldn't go alone," Anya replied instantly. Elias shook his head. "It's better you stay inside where it's warm." But Anya stepped closer, her expression calm yet firm. "I have worked through many storms in my life. I am not afraid of a little wind." Elias hesitated. He didn't want her to feel pushed aside, but he also didn't want her to get cold or soaked. Before he could decide, another gust shook the barn door in the distance, and a faint, distressed bleating sound reached his ears. "One of the calves," he murmured. "It must be scared." Anya didn't wait for permission. She reached for her coat. "Then we go together." Elias finally nodded. "All right." Together, they stepped outside into the cool, restless night. The wind pushed gently at their coats, and thin rain brushed across their faces. The sky was dark but not frightening. It felt alive, shifting and moving like a restless animal. When they reached the barn, Elias pushed the door open, and they both entered. The air inside smelled of hay and warm animals. The lantern on the wall flickered as though the wind outside tried to snuff it out. Elias looked around quickly. A few loose boards had fallen from the roof onto a small pen. Inside the pen, 2 young calves huddled close together, clearly frightened, but unharmed. Elias tried lifting one of the heavy boards. but it barely moved. Anya stepped beside him. "Let me," she said gently. He stepped back, and she reached down with steady hands. She lifted the board with surprising ease, her movements calm and controlled. Elias watched with quiet admiration, not because of her strength alone, but because of the calm way she handled the situation. She moved the board aside, and Elias helped guide the calves out of the pen. "You're all right now," he whispered to them, gently patting their sides. Once the small animals were safe, Elias and Anya worked together to secure the remaining loose boards. Anya held one piece of wood steady, while Elias hammered it back into place. The teamwork felt natural, almost as if they had done it many times before. At one point, Anya glanced at him and said softly, "You are very patient with the animals." He smiled slightly. "They can sense when someone is calm." "I try to be calm for them." "It suits you," she said. He looked at her, surprised by the tenderness in her voice. "And you," he replied slowly. "You are braver than most people I've ever known." She didn't blush, but her eyes warmed. "I have had to be brave," she said. "Still," he said gently, "it's something I admire." They finished repairing what they could, and the barn slowly grew quiet again. The calves settled near their mother, and the other animals relaxed. Outside, the storm softened, the wind calming as if satisfied with its short burst of energy. When they stepped back into the cool night air, Elias breathed deeply. The worst of the storm had passed. Anya looked up at the sky, watching the clouds drift. "It is peaceful now," she said. "Yes," Elias agreed. "Thanks to you." She shook her head. "Thanks to us." As they walked back to the house, the lantern in Elias's hand swung gently between them, casting warm light across their faces. The storm had pushed them into a moment they hadn't expected, a moment where fear, strength, kindness, and cooperation blended into something unspoken but powerful. Inside, they dried off and returned to the kitchen. Elias poured fresh tea, and Anya wrapped her blanket around herself again. For a long time, they didn't speak. They didn't need to. The silence between them was different now. Warmer, deeper, more connected. After a while, Anya looked at Elias, her expression soft. "Back home," she said quietly, "most people only saw my size. Not my feelings. Not my heart." Elias met her gaze. "I see you." The simple words caught her breath. "And I see you too," she whispered. The storm outside had brought wind and worry. But inside the small ranch house, something gentle had begun to grow: trust, understanding, and a connection that felt both unexpected and natural. Neither of them said it aloud, but they both felt it. The storm had changed something. They were no longer strangers linked by letters. They were two people who had faced a night together and found comfort in each other's presence. The morning after the storm arrived softly, like a quiet apology for the long and restless night. The sky was clear and pale blue, washed clean by the rain. The sun peeked over the hills, bringing gentle warmth across the ranch. Birds chirped lightly, as if testing their voices after the windy night. Inside the house, Elias woke early, though he had slept very little. His body felt tired, but his heart felt oddly bright. The memory of the night working together in the storm, helping the calves, sharing warm tea in the dim kitchen kept replaying in his mind. It all felt important, like something he would remember for the rest of his life. He stepped into the hallway quietly. The house was peaceful, except for a faint sound of movement from the guest room. When Anya stepped out, her hair loosely tied back, her expression soft with morning calm, Elias felt a warmth rise in his chest again. "Good morning," he said, trying not to sound too nervous. "Good morning," she replied with a gentle smile. "Did you sleep?" "A little," he admitted. "You?" "Some," she said, "but my thoughts were full." He nodded, understanding without needing to ask more. They walked together to the kitchen, where Elias prepared breakfast eggs, bread, and warm milk. Anya offered to help, but he shook his head. "You're a guest," he said softly. "Let me take care of this." She accepted politely, though Elias noticed she liked being useful. She sat at the table and watched him with quiet appreciation. Every move he made was careful, as if he wanted everything to be just right. When he placed the plate in front of her, she looked at it as though no one had prepared something for her this thoughtfully in a long time. "Thank you," she said, her voice full of genuine warmth. They ate together, sharing small smiles and casual conversation. The atmosphere was so natural that it felt like they had known each other for months instead of only a day. After breakfast, Elias said, "I should go into town today. People will want to know you arrived safely. And I need to speak with the clerk about the marriage papers." Anya paused, her fingers resting lightly on the cup. "Are you sure?" she asked softly. "About going to town?" he said. "No," she replied. "About the papers. About marrying me." Elias looked at her, surprised she would even doubt something so clear in his heart. He shook his head gently. "Yes, I'm sure." She took a slow breath. "Yesterday, you saw things many men have not liked to see. You saw that I am strong. Maybe stronger than you expected. I admired it," Elias said softly. "You saw me lift the wood, and many men have turned away from that." "I didn't turn away," he said quietly. "I stayed." Her eyes softened with something deep, something like relief mixed with hope. "And you will stay?" "Yes," Elias said, steady and sure. "I will." They shared a moment of calm understanding. The night had shown them more about each other than months of letters ever could. The trust formed between them was not sudden, it had simply been waiting for the right moment to grow. After tidying the kitchen, Elias prepared the wagon. Anya hesitated, unsure if she should stay behind. "You can come with me," he said, noticing her uncertainty. "If you want." Anya nodded. "I want to." They rode into town under the soft morning sun. The fields sparkled lightly from the rain, and the scent of wet soil filled the air. As the wagon rolled over the dusty road, Elias occasionally glanced at Anya. She looked curious, but calm, as if she were absorbing every detail of her new environment. When they reached Willow Creek, people quickly noticed them. Some paused and whispered. Others watched openly. A few smiled politely, but most were simply surprised to see the tall woman riding beside the shy rancher who rarely came to town with company. Anya kept her chin lifted gently. Not in pride, but in quiet strength. Elias admired the way she carried herself, not hiding, not shrinking, not trying to appear smaller than she was. They stopped outside the clerk's office. As Elias tied the horses, Anya stepped carefully down from the wagon. The townspeople nearby glanced at her, their curiosity plain. She didn't seem upset, but Elias could sense how uncomfortable the attention might be. He walked beside her, close enough that she knew she wasn't facing the town alone. Inside the office, the clerk looked up from his papers and blinked twice when he saw Anya. "Morning, Elias," he said slowly. "This must be the lady you wrote about." "Yes," Elias said simply. "This is Anya." Anya offered a polite nod. The clerk nodded back, still slightly wide-eyed, but respectful. "You're here for the marriage documents, I suppose?" "Yes," Elias said, feeling a warm steadiness rise from his chest. The clerk handed him a set of papers. "Sign here, and she'll sign here." Elias signed carefully, his handwriting neat but slightly shaky from the weight of the moment. When he handed the pen to Anya, she held it with careful grace and wrote her name in strong, confident strokes. When the clerk finished stamping the papers, he said, "Well, congratulations. Seems like a good match." Elias and Anya exchanged shy smiles. As they walked back outside, a small group of townspeople had gathered. Nothing rude, just curious. Some nodded politely at Elias. Others stared at Anya, surprised by her height, but not hostile. One older woman stepped forward. Mrs. Grady, who had once suggested the agency to Elias. She smiled warmly at Anya. "Welcome to Willow Creek, dear. We're glad you're here." Anya's face brightened. "Thank you," she said softly. Elias watched, grateful for the kindness. After visiting the store for supplies, they headed home. The ride back felt different from the ride into town. This time, there was a sense of completion, of new beginnings taking root. When they reached the ranch, Elias helped Anya down from the wagon. She stood looking at the fields, the barn, the house, and the hills behind them. Everything felt more real now. More her own. Elias stood beside her. "This is where our life will be," he said quietly. Anya looked at him, her eyes warm. "If you wish it," she said. "I do," Elias replied. That evening, Anya cooked a small part of the meal, insisting on helping. Elias tried to argue, saying she should rest, but she smiled and reminded him, "To feel at home, I must also do my part." They worked together in the kitchen, moving around each other with growing ease. When they sat to eat, Elias found himself feeling more comfortable than he had in years. After dinner, they stepped outside and sat on the porch. The sky was wide and full of stars, glowing gently like small lanterns hung in the night. For a while, they simply sat in silence, listening to the soft sounds of the ranch settling into evening. Anya finally spoke. "People back home used to say that no man could stay near me because they felt small next to me." Elias looked at her thoughtfully. "You don't make people small. You just make yourself known." She smiled at his simple but sincere words. He continued, "Maybe those men weren't meant for you. Maybe they didn't have the heart to match yours." Anya turned toward him. "And you? Do you think you can match me?" Elias took a slow breath, not of fear but of certainty. "I believe I already have," he said softly. Her eyes softened, and she looked at him with deep gratitude. In that moment, no crowd watched them, no whispers followed them, no doubts lingered from the past. There was only the quiet country night, the soft breeze brushing their faces, and the peaceful feeling of two people finally finding the place and the person they belonged with. The next morning, word spread around town that Elias Turner had not run away, not hesitated, not backed out like the others had. Instead, he had stood proudly beside the woman who had crossed an ocean to meet him, and he had stayed. People were surprised at first, but soon they began to understand. Strength comes in many forms. Anya's was easy to see, but Elias's was quieter and deeper steadiness, loyalty, gentleness, and courage of the heart. As days turned to weeks, their life together grew steady and warm. Anya found her place in the town, respected for her kindness and her hard-working nature. Elias became known not as the shy rancher, but as someone strong enough to stand beside a woman who many had misunderstood. And slowly, the truth spread not through gossip, but through the quiet admiration of those who witnessed their life. She was never too much for men, they were simply too little for her. Until the shy rancher stayed, and together, they built a life full of trust, comfort, and a love that grew naturally from simple moments like a seed planted in soft earth, watered by kindness, and warmed by quiet companionship.